You're listening to the Patriot Nation Podcast.
All right, welcome to another edition of the Patriot Nation Podcast. As always, a proud member of the CLNS group of podcasts. Make sure you download and subscribe to all those great shows to get great Patriots content all week long. But tonight, it's you guys here, Pat Lane and Matt St. Jean, and we are so very happy to be joined, as always, as customary, after the draft by our guy, Thor Nystrom. He is from the Score North from Score North hosting, what is it, Thor Talks Purple?
That's right.
Right, for all the you Patriots fans that want to get some Vikings intel, hook up with Thor down there. And I think, in my personal opinion, one of the brightest college football evaluators out there. I always love having you on after the draft because I love how you stick to your guns and you talk about these guys because you've been watching them for years, and so it's great. So I always love having you on. So thanks for coming on, Thor.
Appreciate it. Yeah, love coming back every year.
It's fun. And you got the wall of helmets behind you. Like it's the best.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Hell yeah.
How many new additions you got over there?
Well, we have all the FBS. So I think it's like 136 or something like that. And we have all the NFL. So we have the 32 there. And then FCS, I have like 12, right? So that's the next frontier.
That's great.
Got another 100 plus to go there, but we'll get there someday.
That Navy helmet you have in the background with like the gold stripe on it that's my favorite of the Navy helmets that they've had for the Army Navy game.
100%. Like some of the helmets, like you don't want some of them. You want the standard one, but then other ones, I was hunting for some of the special ones, like the Lamar Jackson, Louisville Chrome. I just love that helmet. I love the Chrome Gold Baylor one, and then that Navy one. So yeah, there's definitely some up there that were like sort of handpicked for that.
I like that.
Yeah, that Memphis one too was cool. I like that.
Heck yeah!
Almost like the Bengals, like the Cincinnati Bengals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
what's your favorite one? If you had to pick one favorite one, house is on fire, you can save one helmet. Which one is it?
Probably the Lamar Jackson red chrome.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. That's a good one. One.
Yeah, he was so epic in college. So
yeah.
It's got to be them. Belichick passed on him, by the way.
We were very well away twice.
Twice. Well, at least we got a solid right tackle who sucked, and a running back who I will say, I will go to my grave saying that the Sony Michel pick was worth it because we won the Super Bowl in part because of his 6 touchdowns in the playoffs. However, the Isaiah Wynn pick is indefensible. It was the wrong pick, and realistically, the Sony Michel pick was the wrong pick too. But we did win the Super Bowl that year, so it was kind of hard to argue against. But man, it would have been nice to have Lamar Jackson instead.
Yeah, and you ran the Earhart Perkins system at Louisville under Petrino. So yeah,
he would have been.
I really thought New England was going to take him. But anyway, we digress.
Yep.
If we had a little swear jar here for any time someone mentioned that about Lamar Jackson in New England, I'd be able to pay for his contract.
Wealthy, yes,
fully guaranteed.
So that one and the AJ Brown one.
Well,
but you rectified here.
As a Vikings fan, we also have the thing with Lamar Jackson because that was the offseason when Zimmer and Rick Spielman they stopped talking to each other because they got
right.
Yeah, and Zimmer wanted to keep Keenum, and that was so Case Keenum was the year before with the Minneapolis Miracle, whatnot, and
that's right.
Zimmer wanted to keep him short term, and the thing I was advocating for was give Keenum like whatever he wants for 1 year, and then draft Lamar Jackson. Like that's what I wanted to do, and but yeah, Rick Spielman had other ideas, and it was drafted Kirk Cousins and. Zimmer didn't like when they signed Cousins, and then when they selected Kellen Mond, that was truly the last straw there.
Who did you guys use the first round pick on that year? That wasn't Darisaw, was it?
Of the which year?
The Lamar year.
Yeah, 2018. That's a good question. Who did they use that on?
I would have to go with the year.
2018.
Oh, with the pick of where it would have been Jackson, I believe it was Mike Hughes, because they had a pick there that was before, the end of the first round when Lamar went.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure it's Mike Hughes.
I can't believe he lasted to 32.
Yeah, 100%. And the Ravens took Hayden Hurst. They even passed on him. Like it was pretty wild. Like if the offense that Louisville had run was like some crazy, thing that didn't like Malik Willis played, with Hugh Freeze. It's not analogous to the pros as much. You had to do more projection there, but like Lamar literally played in the offense that Tom Brady did. It's like, and he's ripping it up. Like it's okay.
Crazy.
They overthought that so much.
Everyone did.
Josh Rosen going at and even some of the other guys going ahead of him, at least you can see why someone might prefer a different skill set. But Josh Rosen, bad.
For sure.
Crazy. All right. Anyways, let's get into the 2026 draft 8 years later. Patriots had the 31st overall pick, moved up using one of their fourth round picks, pick 125, to the Buffalo Bills, as a matter of fact, to move up to 28 and get Caleb Lomu. Now, for those of you that are new to this, okay, and have not read Thor stuff for whatever reason, or have not tuned in before when we've had our annual conversation with Thor, the grades that you give out after are just based off of your list and how you have your guys ranked, okay? For those people that don't know. So what were your thoughts on Caleb Lomu? I think I see here that you have him ranked 33rd overall. The Patriots took him 28, of course. I don't know for sure if this is your positional rank or the position rank that he was taken, because I saw that he was taken 7th overall, or 7th as the offensive tackle, but you also have him listed as 7th offensive tackle. So I'm not sure if that's your rank or that's when he was drafted.
Like in my tables, that's my ranking.
That's your ranking. Okay.
Yeah.
So it matches up with where he was taken as far as offensive tackle 7, and he was taken 7th as he was the 7th offensive tackle off the board.
Yeah, and I had him 33. He goes 28, but the offensive linemen were getting pulled up a little bit, and obviously, that sort of explains that. But I had no problem with that pick, especially with those offensive linemen going, and that position group was about to fall off a shelf. So that was the time that you had to get in. It's a fine range to take them in. So I didn't have any. It was like a hit it down the fairway kind of a thing, I don't think he's given up a sack the last 2 years, and obviously declares as a redshirt sophomore. And of course, he played left tackle there. And Fano, who the Browns really wanted, Fano, was the right tackle there the last couple of years at Utah. And Fano's going to be playing left tackle in the NFL. But Lamu is the guy at left tackle. I love him as a pass blocker because he's a really good athlete. Right? Like his footwork is really good. Like he's technically sound, but he's just a really good athlete. You're not going to beat him with movement. The run blocking thing is where with him, that's why I had him at the top of the second. I hate him as a run blocker. I think in zone, he can hit his marks, and that's what you're looking to do with him. He is not a good gap run blocker because in a phone booth, his leg drive will die, against power or whatever. But that's how I saw him. I really do like him as a pass blocker, though.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about this last Thursday, but maybe the most interesting pick the Patriots made because stylistically he's so different from what they've said they want. Yeah. And I think if you were going to do it in a vacuum just based on their skill sets, you'd probably put Lomu at left tackle, Will Campbell at right tackle if you had to pick. But at least right now they're saying it's going to be Campbell on the left side, Lomu on the right side. And it's like, in theory, I think he could develop that leg drive and that strength with another year in the NFL and work with coaches and someone like Vrabel pushing him to do that stuff. But on the flip side, there's a world where he's just not necessarily a culture fit and he's a good player, but you end up with an offensive line where you don't really know how you're going to run the ball with it. And you end up being one-dimensional. And I don't know, this is something that probably gets put on a shelf when we pick back up in 2027 because I think he's going to get essentially a redshirt year here, but definitely a development to watch.
100%. And yeah, like it's interesting thinking about that Patriots offensive line because you could have multiple guys that you're losing value on them because you're playing them not at their ideal position. I totally agree with you. In fact, I'll go further, and I said this on, was it last year's show? Will Campbell would be an amazing guard in the NFL. And the sooner the Patriots realize that, the better. And yeah, Lamu, he's a better fit at left tackle. The whole point of Lamu, it's the pass blocking reliability out there. Like, you're not getting any extra value from him as a run blocker against anyone else. The value's in the pass blocking and specifically at left tackle. So that's what I would do. I would draft a tackle in the next class that plays right tackle, right? Get a hammer for that thing and then have Campbell go inside. But yeah, it's almost like they feel like they have to justify the draft slot that Campbell, you see this in baseball sometimes, like they're keeping him at shortstop a couple years too long because they put the high pick into him, or, like however it goes.
Story.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. So that's, and then a case like this, because left tackle's blocked, you're going to put a guy where his best thing is blocking the blind side to right tackle. It's like, I don't know. Draft a right tackle next year, get Campbell to guard and have Lamu his destiny at left tackle.
Well, what I will say, and one of the things about drafting Lomu in this situation is that you have this year, right? You're presumably looking at this year as his swing tackle year, where he's learning, he's getting a little more sand in his pants. He's like, you're bulking him up a bit, you're getting him ready for the NFL. And then meanwhile, you're also giving Will Campbell another opportunity to prove to you that he actually belongs on the left side at left tackle. Now, I believe that he does, but if by the end of the year he shows that he doesn't, well, then you move him into guard and you put Lomu at left tackle and you feel good about it. And, we'll talk about Crownover too, but like, you have Marcus Bryant, you have Crownover, you're building up your depth at tackle to say, all right, now we have a right tackle. You know what I mean? So I think that that's kind of, not that that's ideal, not that that's what you want, but I feel like they're setting themselves up for that. And the plan isn't for Lomu to start this year anyways. So you give this year to be like, hey, well, show that you're really a left tackle. And if you're not, then we can reassess afterwards.
I was just going to say, I agree with you, Reed. I think that that's correct. It gives you depth and it gives you the options for the future that you can sort of see play out in front of your eyes. I mean, both the proof of life concept on the guy you just drafted, and then also you give one more year, obviously, to the top 5 pick next year, and the right tackle, the time's going to be moving on soon. So, you have a bunch of different stuff that you can do there while you're figuring that out. But I totally agree with you.
And then you add on Michael Wenu going into this year on the last year of his deal. They just signed Elijah Vera Tucker to a 3-year deal. So in theory, you can do a move here where Lomu goes to left tackle, and then everyone kind of bumps over. You're going to put Will Campbell in at left guard, and then Elijah Vera Tucker can replace Michael Wenu at right guard. And then, assuming that Jared Wilson wins this center job and plays better in the center role instead of the guard role this year. And then it's for the third straight offseason, you're going into it needing a tackle. But at least in theory, at that point, you feel good about 4/5 of your line. And you can, if you feel good about that line, you can probably find a Band-Aid right tackle in free agency, another Morgan Moses, or, use another first-round pick there. I mean, you got an offensive line with 3 first-round picks on it at that point. You would hope that's a line good enough to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and listen, and Nelson's saying, stop the Will Campbell hate. He's the left tackle, and Lomu was the right tackle, and I hope that that's true, right? I do. I believe that Will Campbell is the left tackle of the future, and I know some people don't, right? But this is going to be the year where he's going to have the opportunity to prove that, right? He's going to be able to prove to everyone either he is the left tackle or he isn't, right? And he's going to get this opportunity to do that, and so, I don't think it's necessarily hate. I know that Thor, there's a lot of people that agree with you. And, I know there's a decent amount of people that agree with me too. And so ultimately it's going to come down to how does he play when he's on the field? And he's going to get the opportunity this year to prove one way or the other where he belongs in the NFL. And, if he can prove that he belongs at left tackle, then Lomu stays at right tackle and then we're good, right? And if he doesn't, well, then he's got to move to guard and we figure it out from there. And that's, I think that ultimately is is what the plan is moving forward. And I think it should be the plan because I think they should be thinking they drafted Will Campbell to play left tackle. I think they should be thinking he's our left tackle. But they also have to be able to look at it objectively and say, okay, well, he certainly struggled in the playoffs. No, he was hurt. And I get that. He's playing through injury and whatever. But if he's going to continue to show that he's that guy against the top edge rushers, then he can't play left tackle, right? And if that's the case, he's going to have to move to guard. And does it suck that we use the number 4 overall pick at guard? Sure. But if he's an all-pro at guard, who gives a shit? Like, it doesn't matter if he's, and if he's a significantly better guard than he is a tackle, then why waste it? Just because, why? Because you're not happy you have to move him to guard? So what? Figure it out. And if he's a Pro Bowl guard, he's a Pro Bowl guard. And that's not ideal at 4, but it could be worse.
Yeah, that's well said, and that's well reasoned. That's what the plan should be. Even someone like me that thinks ultimately it's going to be Lamu at left tackle and Campbell inside. You should give Campbell one more year. Why would you jump the gun on it? Like you said, why would you pull the plug after 1 year? What, to throw Lamu to the wolves? Lamu's issues are already play power, right? Like he's still going to have to deal with some more daddy edges in the NFL. In pass pro, like his thing, going to have to figure out how to anchor better. I would do it the exact way that you said and let Campbell fail in year 2 if indeed that's going to happen, or succeed, right? But I wouldn't pull the plug on him after 1 year either. Yeah. I feel like it's fair to let him do it for 1 year, and Lamu needs the time to develop his body anyway.
Yeah.
I do want to ask here, because they take the 7th ranked tackle. I don't think either of us ever had them taking Lamu because we thought he'd be gone, and we didn't think he was necessarily a fit. And I think you've kind of said the same thing here. So if the Patriots don't go tackle, is there anyone else you think of that's like, this is someone you wanted the Patriots to take? I know edge was a position of need. Keldrick Falk goes right there at the end of the first round with pick 31, the one the Patriots had. Is he someone you would have liked for New England?
100%. Yeah. I'm a fan of Falk. He's one of those polarizing type guys, but for me, you have a really high floor there because he is an elite run defender. And then he's just so projectable with the frame, the athleticism. And then we saw him play up and down the line at Auburn. And yeah, I know the pass rushing isn't as far along yet, but I feel like the NFL already took care of some of the risk in, the asset itself by pushing him down the board there. In this crappy draft class at the very end of the first round, a guy who's guaranteed to be a decade-long starter in the NFL, and if nothing else, provide elite run defense. Like that was where did he go? 28, 29, like something like that.
31.
Or 31.
31, yeah.
It's like in this draft class, like really. He reminded me a lot of Michael Williams, but
yes.
Yeah,
who went much higher. That was
went much in a better draft class too.
Yeah. So would you have preferred the Falk pick to Lomu?
Yeah, me. Yeah. But I don't argue against the pick that they did. Especially getting in on, because it's the same thing, with like Fano and then some of the other tackles that were taken. Like, I don't argue against those because of the run on that and team sort of buying cost certainty at that position in a draft class where there was so few sure things. Like I didn't disagree with that at all, and I think they got him. Now, my story on New England's value in draft slots is about to change. So don't get too comfortable out there, folks. But I don't argue. I don't argue with the value of him and his.
Yeah, and I think the other part of it too that you can look at is the position value as well, right? And you kind of mentioned it after Lamu, and I'm not sure if it's Lamu or Lomu, but either way, right? After him, the value at tackle drops off a cliff. Right. Whereas the edge, and we'll talk about that with their next pick, but the edge, there's still a good amount of decent players left that you feel all right with. So in that respect, it's like, all right, we'll maybe we reach a little bit for the tackle and maybe Fox a little bit better, but we feel like we can get a guy that is about as good as Falk. And a little bit later, whereas we're not going to get anyone that's as close to what Lomo is.
100%. And I do this 3-dimensional chess thing all the time with the two positions, and I can in exercises in the spring, and I guarantee the evaluators do too. But if you have like 2 pressing needs or 3 pressing needs, and you have like the 2 or 3 early picks of like, if we took this position here, what could we expect at the next one that would be available, and then vice versa. And then it doesn't become so much. And I think this is to your point, apples to apples against like the best guy in this position against this guy. But now you're sort of extending, it becomes more 3-dimensional chess because you're also sort of baking in what pick could we do that could juice the odds of getting a better value in our next slot at a position that's still of need. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that totally happens for sure.
Yeah.
The
So
opportunity cost there. And I think that plays into why you see consecutive trade-ups for New England to open this draft as well, to make sure they're getting the guys they actually wanted in the tier they wanted.
Agreed.
To start the draft.
All right, before we get into day 2, we do have to pay the bills here, Matt. So let's do a quick little ad read here. So the regular season is wrapped, and the NBA playoffs are finally here, and there's no better way to cash in on the high-flying hoops action than Prize Picks, a preferred partner of the NBA. Every bucket, every dime, and every win means more when you're playing on Prize Picks. So don't pass up your next shot with Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. My lineup tonight. We got 2 games going on tonight. I got Jason Tatum for more than 41.5 points, rebounds, plus assists. I have Peyton Pritchard and Tyrese Maxey combined for more than 5.5 3-pointers made, and I have Charlie McAvoy for more than 2.5 hits. Again, you can combining the games makes it so much more fun. What are you going to do? Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, a preferred partner of the NBA. All right. So, Thor, let's get into day 2 because we mentioned this day 2, and Matt just mentioned it too. The Patriots are at pick 63. They decided to move up to pick 55. They give up 131 and 202 to do it, and they grab edge Gabe Akis. You had him ranked 57, and as your edge 12. What do you think of this pick?
Yeah, I'm pulling up the this year. I tried to keep better track of the trades, so I had forgotten to pull that up. I have where I have them all listed, so I was gonna take a look at that, like what my chart said. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead. By the way, James mentioned it, and I totally blew it. On Thursday, he mentioned I should have done a pirate version of the ad read, and I forgot to do it Thursday or Friday. Completely blew it. That's on me, James. I apologize. Should have done it Thursday or Friday or Saturday, and I totally forgot. So, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time finding that one, but I like the prospect, and this is another one I thought was taken in the correct slot. He grew on me the more that I, over his career, and then the more that I watched him, because the effort is there, the forward propulsion, the conversion of speed to power. Here's a dichotomy I like of him as a pass rusher. You get the speed to power thing, so you have like the fastball, and it's good enough that offensive tackles, they have to respect it. They have to be on their heels a little bit in the set and make sure you get back there quick. But then he also has the counter moves off of it. He's figured out as his career went along, and this was like the progression of him as a pass rusher, all the different counter moves that he could do. And so he's really crafty with that. Obviously, the weaknesses are also very straightforward. He's not a very good run defender, right? So it's like at the next level, is he just – that was the debate we had of him, is like, is it a situational pass rusher, or, can he get up to full snaps because he can get you by with the run defense? But love him as a pass rusher. I totally see what they were seeing there.
Well, and I think we really like him as as your second edge. Like, that's probably where he profiles best. And the way the Patriots have done it, they seem to value penetration over holding a gap in the run game. So in theory, he might give up a couple splash plays, but if he can get into the backfield and make a TFL or two, that those are the type of plays that can end drives. And you're just kind of placing a bet that in run defense, you can get him to create enough of those negatives for offenses that it counteracts the big plays he might give up. And then you add in, hopefully sacks. And I don't think he's ever going to be a number one edge, at least traditionally speaking. But I think a lot of upside is your second best edge.
Yeah, and it's a guy where I feel like, it's one of those guys where, you look on his stat page in like 8 years, and it's like between, you know, every year it's like 7.5 sacks and then 9 sacks and then 8.5 sacks. Like you're looking at his Pro Football Reference, but it's like every year it's like 17 appearances, like 4 starts. You know, it's but a guy that impacts games as the, you know, that guy coming in and then throwing his fastballs, you know, on the pass rushing down. If nothing else, there is a value to that, right? They're drive killers. So I mean, that you drafted that guy to kill drives, and he's going to kill some drives in the NFL.
Yeah, well, and I think too. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, the number I threw out is, can he get 24 sacks on his rookie contract? You know, like 6 sacks a season.
I would take the over.
Yeah, and I think that's even if he's not someone you end up re-signing, if you can get that level of production on a rookie contract from that pick when you're trading up, I think you feel good about the return on investment there.
100%.
Yeah, and the hope is too, you know, 260 pounds, you're hoping that you can teach him, you know, to stop the run, right? He's not some guy that's 235 coming off the edge or 240 coming off the edge who just physically can't do it. He's got the size to do it. And so can you teach him to be a little bit more effective that way? And then maybe he's on the field for 3 downs. So I think that, you know, you're hoping that you can also do some of that too.
100%.
So, all right. So on to the third round here, Patriots' last pick of day 2. And, you know, really, and we'll kind of talk about, interestingly enough, what I think the Patriots think about this entire draft. But I think, you know, they had an opportunity to, it's funny because as this pick is getting made, and I was listening back to our guys Taylor and Mike Cadlick when they're doing the instant reaction to this pick, and they got on a few picks before it. And I had originally tweeted out before this pick was made that the Patriots had traded up. Well, someone had tweeted out that the Steelers had traded up with the Patriots at the end of the third round. They had actually traded up with the Seahawks, but they just mixed it up. Anyways, not that it matters, but the Patriots decide to stick where they are at 95, and they take Eli Raridan here at 95. Now, you had him as your tight end 9. He was the 9th tight end taken, and you also had him at 155. So you had him a little bit lower than I saw him on consensus boards, and we're going to have a consensus board chat about in a few minutes. But what do you think of this pick, Thor? Because I actually – the more I watched him, I didn't like him at first, and the more I watched him, the more I started to really like him. Curious what you thought.
Yeah, did you say he was the same tight end taken that I had him on my board?
So he was taken as the 9th tight end, and you had him as the 9th. Now I don't know who your 9 tight ends were, but
yeah, I just had him like because this draft class, you know, as you guys know, there's like an arms race for all the tight ends, and so like my distribution of tight ends is more like normalized to a regular draft class, and you have something anomalous like that at where the 9th tight end, you know, there's a discrepancy like that. So I definitely should have had more tight ends, you know, in my top 257, but I tend to do it based on averages like last 5 years and whatnot. But as far as Raridan, I kind of agree with you because if you watch him with the context, that's where it gets interesting. And if you don't know the context of Raridan, then you're going to be like, at his age, well, you know, in that movement, like, and, you know, his statistical profile to that point. But if you bake in the context, like all the adversity he's overcome, the field time that he's missed, and then you're like, well, he didn't really get full-time field time till this past season. And when you start baking in with that context, it's like, seems like there could be some real ceiling left to untap here. You know, I mean, you see some really nice moments with him on film. It's a natural pass catcher. He's obviously got a big frame. 6'6", 250. He's a solid athlete too. But yeah, you have the multiple ACL tears in the past. But he was a big play, kind of a tight end for them last year. Big hands. He has the basketball background. I like the body control on him. He uses his body well as well. It's a guy that could be a seam stretcher for sure in the NFL. So yeah, it is a guy where he flashes different skills. And again, if you're not going to be punitive with him about this is his age, this is statistical profile, this is without any of the context, I think that's when you start to see him negatively. But when you bake in the context and then you think, man, if he just experientially, he's out there more, that's where I think your imagination goes a little bit more with Eli Raridan.
Well, I think tight end is a position too where the statistical production doesn't necessarily mean as much because these guys tend to develop in the NFL too. He tested incredibly well at the combine. When you watch him on tape, he's so fluid the way he moves. Like you just see him in and out of breaks, and it's like, okay, this guy can move. He can separate from people. I think, bigger questions. He's kind of a narrow frame, so I do wonder. I think he can be a decent blocker. I do for a tight end one inline guy. I do wonder just how high the ceiling does end up being there. I don't know how much weight he's going to be able to put on. But like, if you're okay with the medicals there, which it's been 4 years since his last ACL tear, and he did no issues there. Like, if you're okay with the medicals, then I think there's a lot to like with his profile. And if he didn't have those red flags, I feel like he's someone that goes higher in the draft. Like the kid the Jaguars drafted, I could not believe he went
Barker,
ahead of Raritan because like I don't get that one.
It's funny because I was banging the drum for Barker back in January. I might have been the first one, but like I was saying, he'd be like a value pick on like day 3, and then Jacksonville took him in round 2. It's like that's way beyond where I can go, as well. But kind of interesting draft.
On here 3 drafts ago, Pat's draft crush was Manuel Forbes as like a guy the Patriots could take in the second round. And then he ends up coming off the board, and we get Christian Gonzalez. And it's like, all right, well,
never
that much.
In a million years would I have ever taken him over Christian Gonzalez because he was my cornerback 1, even over what's his name, Witherspoon. But then they take him 16, and I'm like, what in the world? I'm like, all right, I guess I was right. But then of course I wasn't right because he sucked. But it's what are you gonna do?
100%.
But all right, let's get into it. And this is what's interesting. So before we get into this, though, I am curious what your thoughts are about the consensus board because there's been a lot of discussion about the consensus board and what the consensus board means, and and so on and so forth, and all the other crap. Just from your perspective, what do you think about the consensus board? I know when you're doing your grading, it's just strictly based on your grades, right? And I get that, right? And we've talked about the bell curve and everything, and I'm sure we'll get into it kind of at the end. But when you look at the consensus board and you look at the draft compared to it, what do you feel about it?
I think there's something to like the prediction markets, like the Kelce and these things, they argue that it's like the wisdom of the crowd, prediction, sort of things. And I guess maybe I see things like that kind of and mock draft data as well. I think would fit with this where it's sort of there's sort of like bumpers or they're kind of roadmaps. It's not truth itself, but it kind of maps over it. It at least moors you to reality. And I think that's why teams look at the mock draft data and some teams, not the 49ers, but some teams look at some of the consensus boards as well. But yeah, to me, that's what it is. It's basically like why did teams use at the very beginning, the Jimmy Johnson trade chart became popularized because finally you just had like a Kelly Blue Book that, everyone could sort of agree like, hey, let's just, take a look at like what a trade could look like. We'll let the little manual do the work for us. And in this case, like I think it's also sort of a guidebook like that of just maybe don't take Kalen Black in the 3rd round.
Right.
Maybe wait till the 5th.
Yeah.
If you want to get aggressive.
But if you're like a GM too, like I just think about it, if you're trying to save your job, if you have like an independent thing you can point to and say, hey, it wasn't just me that liked this guy, I feel like that's useful. So some of these guys go in this far off the reservation. It's like, man, that feels like you're opening yourself up for some harsh judgment from above. That said, I the consensus board is incredibly useful, and also you have to be aware of where it's going to have its holes, which I think this can segue nicely into the next Patriots pick, which is going way off the map in the 5th round with a corner. The consensus board is going to be based on media evaluators who are inherently like they have less information than NFL teams are going to 100%. Have. And I think one thing that's hard to quantify in a ranking like this is, how do the medicals factor in? How do you factor in guys that the media hasn't watched? How do you factor in information? If there's what do you call it? Personality information. You get in the room with a guy and it's like, oh, we just don't like his personality and he's going to fall because of that. It also doesn't take into account scheme fit, which I think is an important part of this. You shouldn't be, reaching by a whole round because of scheme fit or things like that. But I think you combine the consensus board and the mock draft data with your own scheme, and it's incredibly useful to figure out where you think players are going to go, where you think runs are going to be, who's going to be on the board where, and where you can get the guys that you think fit what you do best. But for the Patriots pick here in the 5th round, corner out of Wake Forest, 5'12" by consensus, on a guy who
wait, what was he was 5'12"?
Yeah.
Whoa.
By the way,
man, I guess I was super high on him.
Where'd you have him?
Hold on one second. I'm pulling it up.
Yeah, you had him
I had him
at
310.
310. Yeah.
Wow, I guess I'm high, man.
Look at that. So
I'm back in the good grace of the Patriots fans. Hi, man.
You're reaching by almost as much as the Patriots for that.
So I will say one thing that I found interesting. There's on Twitter, Caleb Banks enthusiast at Nick Weston. No K at Nick Weston. He said the consensus board is sort of like the law. It's very reasonable and normal to be breaking it every once in a while, but when you do it over and over, it's probably bad. And I was like, that's just so perfect because, not every pick is going to be on consensus. And if you're just drafting on consensus, then you're not using your brain. You're just drafting. So some picks are going to have to go against consensus. But if you're just drafting over and over and over again against consensus, you just kind of feel like, what are we doing here? And someone had pointed out and it's not a perfect analogy, but someone had, and I forget who it was, but had mentioned about, hot dogs. You can buy a hot dog for $150 and maybe you really like that hot dog, but if no one else is going to pay $150 for it, why are you paying $150 for it? Just buy a regular hot dog for $4. Like, what are you doing? Buy the 100%. Same hot dog, but overspend by $1 instead of $100, And I think that's, I like the thought of that as well. So, but anyways,
the Jaguars doing what they did is like paying $150 for a hot dog because you saw a guy walking down the street and you thought he might get to the hot dog vendor first, and you're just making sure he won't get that hot dog. I just want to make sure the last hot dog doesn't go there.
I will say the Jaguars draft is redeemed by drafting Emmanuel Pregnon at 88, who I think is going to be an All-Pro year one.
Yeah,
but I think he's an All-Pro
It's so funny that, what was it? I think he was the only player they drafted who was consensus top 100 with their 3rd pick that wasn't in the top 100.
Yes, it's insane. It's insane. And it's one of those funny things where
blind squirrel.
Right. I almost feel like, remember the Lions that year when they drafted, Gibbs number 12 and they drafted Jack Campbell and they drafted Banks. And it was like, what the hell are you doing? And it's like, well, yeah, but we got 3 really good players. And, maybe we could have drafted Campbell, in Banks' spot and Banks in Campbell's spot, but we got them both. Who cares? You know what I mean? And so from that perspective, I get it. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, you got to draft good players. And I'm not convinced the Jaguars drafted all good players, if I'm being honest with you. So that's really the issue.
Well, consensus tells you that most people did not value the guys they took to be as good. And maybe they know better than others. That's the thing. I think the one area where a consensus board can probably fall short is if the NFL is valuing certain things differently than the press. So there's 2 parts of ranking prospects. One is evaluation, watching them, figuring out what do they do, what don't they do, and then there's the valuation part. How much are we willing to pay to get this thing? And we talk about tackle with Lomu, he goes 5 spots earlier than where you had him, but that's fine because the NFL is saying, hey, we value this thing a lot, and it's going to push him above where consensus might have him. Although he was actually exactly 28 by consensus, which is pretty funny. So I think that's one spot where it could miss, particularly with skill sets. The best argument in the Jaguars' favor is if that tight end they took in the 2nd round does certain things well that the NFL values, and the press didn't realize the NFL is valuing, then maybe the press is just way off on him. I don't think that's actually supported by any reporting on how other teams felt about him either.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Agreed.
and they were trying to, he was trying to cite like, the tight end or tight end position, more 12 personnel, and we got ahead of the tight end run. It's like, okay, but you reached on a guy. Like, what, you want a pat on the back for that because you like got? Who cares if you get sniped? Like, and I'm someone that likes Borkirker. It's like who cares? There's a million tight ends in the anyway. Yeah, that was it was kind of weird.
If your goal was just to take a tight end, you can do that anywhere. Like
Correct. Yeah, it's silly. It's silly. I mean, Matt says it all the time, and I keep going back to it. I always go back to it, but Matt always says all the time, and I give him credit for it. If you draft a guy to fill your need, and that guy stinks, you haven't actually filled your need. Like it's pretty simple. Just because you need a tight end doesn't mean you have to draft the tight end if that guy stinks.
100%.
So, all right, let's get into Karen Prunty. So I think the Patriots thought this draft sucked. I really do. I think that the Patriots looked at it and said, we think day 3 basically blows and all these guys are going to be UDFAs. They never even attempted to trade up. They still had 2 6th-round picks. I'm sorry, they had 3 6th-round picks. They didn't use any of them. I think they actually may have had 4 6th-round picks. They didn't trade. They didn't use any of them to trade up. They could have done that. They decided against it. So they stick at 171. That means they go 76 picks in between picks, which is an obscenely long amount of time between their picks. But nevertheless, at 171, they go Karan Prunty, cornerback out of Wake Forest. You had him as your cornerback 30, again, ranked 310. I guess I can see watching the film. I'm like, all right, it looks like he's a draftable player at least. Like, I mean, consensus had him as 5'12", which is basically a Malcolm Butler training camp invite, right? Not a UDFA, a training camp invite. I think he's better than that, but like in the 5th round, I feel like is kind of wild.
Yeah, it seemed a little aggressive, and you're talking to high man in the media on Karan Prunty. I think over here, Karan Prunty, and this is probably why, but he began his career. Am I wearing it? Yeah, I went to undergrad, if you can see there, University of Kansas, and way back when Karan Prunty began his collegiate career at the University of Kansas, and this gets into, it's a hard evaluation because then he was subdivision for a while, and the Wake Forest, it's at the end. He was solid last year, like he was one of the ACC's upper echelon kind of starting corner last season, but he was 24 years old, right? He was good on the field, like you said, but yeah, the 24-year-old thing. And then he tested actually surprisingly well. I liked him on the field, but I was like, I don't think he's a great athlete. And he had an 8.7 RAS, kind of surprised me with Prunty. Was a little bit better than I thought. But his on-field athleticism, with the GPS, I have some of the data of like, that kind of stuff. On-field athlete, he was 54th percentile. And the max, and this is one of the on-tape things with him. The max acceleration is 11th percentile on him. The change of direction, the same thing he slayed in his test. He's 79th percentile on that. His best thing on field, but. It's just a guy that you think is probably tapped out. And then the other thing is it was the 1-year pop-up. But he was solid last year in the ACC. So that's why I was like, I couldn't put him in the draftable thing, but I had him just kind of sitting up. He was good enough at the highest level last year that, to me, that makes you legitimate. And he tested pretty well, even though he moved around better in the test than I thought he did on the field. But that's why I had him, just sort of in shouting distance of draftable range.
Yeah.
Well, he's, it's later in the draft and a bigger reach, but the Craig Woodson pick last year was one where older defensive back, PFF liked him. He tested well. The tape didn't necessarily back up the testing. One of those guys who tested better than he looked when you watch him play. And the Patriots reached to get Woodson, and that ends up working out for you pretty well. So that does make me wonder, is there something the Patriots know that we don't hear, or something in their scouting methodology that's pointing them in this direction? Having someone who's as tall as Prunty, who also has that change of direction, is unique. You don't usually see that combination of athleticism. Usually those guys are slower to change directions because the legs are so long and the hips are so high. And as an outside corner, I mean, I think it's intriguing. He's probably going to come in tapped out, but maybe there's a world where he just comes in and is your corner 4 year 1, and maybe he's never more than a corner 4. But if you get 4 years of a fourth corner in the 5th round, you're going to be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I comped him to a corner that I was pretty familiar with as a Vikings fan. You guys remember Cam Tiny Dantzler?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
That's what I comped Prunty to. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right. So 25 picks later, they go with Demetrius Crownover.
Oh, yeah.
And, Crownover is a guy that huge guy.
Huge.
6'7", 320, long arms. He's the type of guy that you feel like, all right, that's a prototypical tackle build. Now, is he actually the guy that you think he is? Is he, he's got some work to do, I think. And he's a little bit older. But, I like taking a shot at it. Look, the NFL needs tackles. And so just take as many tackles as you possibly can and build up that depth as much as you can, because, the whole league needs it and the Patriots need it too.
Yeah, that's 100%. And Crownover, he's an interesting prospect. Earlier in the spring, I like Crownover a bit more, and then I watched some more of them, and you kind of go back and forth. There was kind of like a glut of tackles there in the middle that you could kind of move up and down. But what I loved about him, it's the length. It's like when he's doing well and he's set up well in pass protection, basically to beat him to the outside, it's like running. We were talking heading into the show about you just got back from a cruise. He forces you to run around a cruise ship because he's so long. If you're going to go around that kind of a way, and because of the size and the play strength, he can also deal with you. When you want to try to go through his chest as well, he can get crossed up. And that's the thing where the technique with him. We needed to get better because he gets crossed up and he beats himself, or people beat him in pass protection. Right now, north-south guy coming forward in the run game, I really like him, and I like probably more accurately, I like the idea of him in pass protection, but not maybe reality right now, because that's the thing we have to work on. I always feel like he's so close, and I think A&M did too. But then we had a couple years where it was regressing a little bit, and between the length and the athleticism that he has, this is a former tight end, a position convert, and that he's always been with the huge frame and the long arms and the strapping guy. But yeah, put on extra weight. But yeah, just have to work on that technique a little bit more. And one of the ways you can dream on it a little bit with him is he doesn't have as much experience at that position as some of the other guys. But that excuse is only going to go so long now that you're in the NFL. So you're close there. It is an interesting developmental guy and really interesting tools on Crownover as well.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the what do you call it? That backup tackle job, or even just the tackle position in general, is going to be so fascinating to watch. Like once we get into August and the pads come on, because you're going to have Marcus Bryant, who they picked last year, and James Hudson, who they signed, all fighting for that fourth tackle job, with presumably Lomu taking the third one. And you'll have to watch Will Campbell and how he actually bounced back this year, and Morgan Moses with his age. So a number of different ways this could play out.
Yeah, I'm going to be disappointed if the kid they signed is on the roster, to be very honest with you, because
Five, was it 5 penalties in one drive or whatever it was? James Hudson.
I just, I think that I was very impressed with Marcus Bryant in training camp, and then even in the preseason, I thought he was pretty good. And then he just could never get on the field during the season, and so that was disappointing. But I'm hoping that he takes a little bit of a step forward, and then obviously we'll see what happens with Crownover. I just feel like, Hudson's not a guy that should see the field. Really, should even make the roster, to be honest with you. So, especially with the depth they have now, we'll see. But that's kind of what I'm hoping to see this year. But all right, so a few picks later, they go back in the 6th round. They go with Nnamdi Obiazer. Linebacker, you had him as linebacker 25, ranked 289 overall. I get what they're doing, right? I understand 6'2", 232, really good RAS score. So I get it, sideline to sideline. The question is he big enough, right? Is he big enough to play that middle linebacker spot? I mean, maybe it doesn't matter in the current NFL, but I just don't think it does. And so, I'm curious. I'm curious your thoughts here. You had him at 289. He went 212. You had him as linebacker 25. I'm not sure what number linebacker he went off the board, but there were other guys that I liked over him at that spot, and certainly at a few other spots too that they just didn't take him. So curious what you thought there.
Yeah, I see him as a special teamer. That's just what, and I overall I had him 289. So just, slightly outside of draftable, but, a guy with, special teams kind of utility and maybe a depth linebacker. That's just what I sort of saw him as. Guys that are his size, I need to see you having more of an impact and around the ball more. He does have the speed and I know he's a good tackler too. He's a reliable tackler, but I don't see the fleshed out sort of skill set, a difference maker at that size where I'm going to get excited about you. You need to be zooming around and making an impact in coverage like a Kyle Lewis or, some of these other dudes where there's, the run game guys where they're zipping around as well. Like, for me, he just fell sort of like a couple tiers beneath that. So for me, it was more of a special teamer. I think I have some of the same concerns with him that you do regarding the frame.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when we get to this point in the draft, this and a lot of the other picks here for the Patriots feels like special teams ability factors in, which honestly to me at this point, like I have no objections to that. You're probably not drafting a guy at this point who's going to win a starting job for you. You're starting 11 either side of the ball. So if you can get someone who can be a starter on special teams, you take it. And, you go back to that loss at home against the Bills where you could have won the division last year. Special teams plays big for the Bills in that game. So if you think you can overturn that a little bit and just get some bodies in there you like better, that could, be an impact for you.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and ultimately in the 6th round, right? If you think a guy projects to play, becomes a core special teamer for you and you draft him in the 6th round, I don't necessarily hate that. Maybe he can give you a little bit of depth at linebacker, but even if he doesn't, if he becomes a core special teamer, you feel all right about it. All right, on to the 7th. 234, they take Bailey Zappi. Baron Morton.
Nice.
You have him as Danny Etling. I don't think he's as
Patriots legend Danny Etling.
If you saw that 89-yard touchdown run he had against the Giants in the preseason, I don't know how you're comparing anyone to Danny Etling, but
Danny Michael Vick.
But I think he's a guy that's not afraid to take any of those. To make any of those throws, but he just doesn't really have the arm strength for it. And that just reminds me a lot of Bailey Zappi. And so I don't, you're not drafting this guy to ever play a game for the New England Patriots. So like ultimately you're drafting him specifically as a backup and nothing else. But I still don't, I'm like, okay, I guess, but whatever.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's super limited. He's limited by the arm. You see, it was a playoff game that they had. He was really struggling when the offense had to go through him. When he was at his best, it was when Texas Tech's defense was, caving in opposing offenses and putting him in really good, sort of spots. And then, they didn't have to take as many chances. It's, it's a guy, like you said, you get the ball out really quick. That's, you're going to, if he's on the field, that you're just trying to paper cut people. That's what it's going to be. And I don't expect him to succeed if he ever has to in the NFL either.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Morton doesn't make the initial 53 here.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't see, there was other guys I liked. I had him QB 17. There was I just like their tools more. I just don't like the arm with Morton. I tried to with Morton. Like I remember when he first came up with Texas Tech, like they were super excited about him and it's like, oh, Baron Morton. Like we waited a couple years and, but yeah, the physical tools, they're just not enough to get you excited, more or less.
Well, I think it's interesting. The Patriots brought in 2 of these guys for top 30 visits, and it's Morton and Jalen Daniels. And both are on the board when they pick here, and they pick Morton. So
yeah,
I guess there was something in that visit that answered a question for them, I'm guessing.
I almost wonder too, like, this is a situation where you're not drafting a quarterback to ever start for you. And if that's the case, then you don't really care if he can win you football games. Maybe you're looking at it at, what's he going to be like in the locker room? How is he going to be, as a backup quarterback, and so on and so forth. And so I wonder if they liked that with him a little bit better than they liked it with Daniels. I don't know. But that's, I guess maybe that's the argument there. He's a tough kid, played through injuries, like loves being out there, wants to be hard. So like, I guess that's the rationale, but I just feel like regardless of where you're drafting, like I just feel like there are better players and better positions you can go after, in my opinion.
I would agree. Yeah, it's a trash quarterback class. Like I didn't get, at least they didn't blowtorch a third round pick like the Cardinals and the Steelers. Yes. And then the Jets, they decided to torpedo a fourth rounder on Klubnik. But yeah, it's like, guys, this quarterback class is dog shit. You don't have to take one of these guys. You don't have to use a third round pick on this. I feel like some teams more this year than ever, you saw teams really going YOLO with some picks. Like people like looking around the room like, well, fuck it. We don't really like anyone on the board. So, the Ravens let the owner make a pick. Like it was like, it's like, what the, I'll just say in the 2027 draft, I don't think GMs are going to let their owners make any of the picks.
Although I will say I did like that pick by the Ravens. So
Adam Randall.
Yeah.
It could have been worse.
So
every year the Ravens pick 2 or 3 guys we wanted in New England, and he was one of them. It happened again this year. He was one of them.
Yeah. All right, 2 picks left here. We got 247. We got Jam Miller. He might be my favorite pick of day 3. Maybe not day 3.
Really?
Maybe my favorite pick of the 7th round. It's just like I just love the when you have a guy like that, like he's got some speed to him, and maybe he's a kick return guy for you. I don't know. I'm curious what your thoughts are on Jam Miller.
I think he's a decent athlete. I don't know that he knows what he's doing yet, and he's not good yet. I get like the idea of him. I comped him to you guys remember Mike Weber coming out of Ohio State because of it's similar frame and then the high end speed. Like you're talking about. Jam ran a 4.42 with a 1.53 10-yard. Was pretty good on both those accounts at 209 pounds. You sort of see that, but yeah, just sort of like Weber. Not super explosive. The change of direction, not the best as well. Maybe a limited skill set. At least I thought I had him, RB21 and 312 on my board. But then again, I didn't really like any running backs in this class. I wouldn't have taken one late. That's that. I would have waited till another year with running back, to be honest.
I think. I mean, the depth chart in New England after Henderson and Stevenson gets very bare very quickly there. So I think they probably just wanted a body to add to the competition and see what happens. Because it's Terrell Jennings and Lan Larison he's going to be battling with.
Oh, yeah.
They just released Elijah Mitchell today.
Yeah, they just have a bunch of nobodies. And look, I think that they approach day 3 as almost, this is just UDFA. All these guys are UDFAs for us. And that's kind of how they looked at it. And I guess that's fine. There are other guys that I liked. I liked Eli Eidenreich. I loved Landon Robinson. They didn't go after any of those guys, any of those D tackle types that I thought, could help them, whether it was, Caleb Proctor, whether it was, Albert Regis, who actually went a lot earlier to the Jaguars. Surprise, surprise. But, Landon Robinson, guys like that I thought those are the types of guys the Patriots wanted, and they didn't go after any of them. And so that kind of surprised me. But, what are you going to do?
Yeah. I the day 3 and then the news leading up to day 3, I thought the whole thing was kind of weird. That was a super uninspiring day 3 kind of performance. And yeah, like if it's a bad draft class, as opposed to being like, well, it doesn't matter anyway, why not just shoot the moon on guys? If it doesn't matter anyway, just churn the roster spot over, but bring them to camp and try on a higher ceiling guy. And then, right? Like if that's the idea anyway, Yeah, so that whole thing with the Patriots at the end there was a little bit weird, just from afar, but I didn't know anything else about it. But I thought it was interesting that then their day 3 performance, at least to me, I didn't love it.
When it's your last 4 picks, you're looking at 3 guys whose, shortest path to impact the roster this year is on special teams, and the guy who's battling for QB3.
Right.
It's an interesting use of draft capital. So obviously we'll see how it pans. I think it does mean they have confidence in the guys they already have in the building, and they're looking to flesh out special team stuff. Like they're not. I don't know, but I agree with your philosophy that you should be aiming higher.
Yeah.
In general.
To your point, though, I feel like I'd rather take shots on guys that are traitsy guys or guys that could develop into, UR Bernard is a guy that
100%.
I love it.
Yeah.
Of course, it was freaking Philadelphia that took him, right? But
exactly.
Why the hell not? If you're just taking a guy that you want to play special teams anyways, just pick a UDFA that can play special teams. Who cares?
Yeah.
Draft a guy that, if he hits, has unlimited potential, right? Like, who knows? The guy's never stepped on a football field before, right? They were talking about Jordan Mailata. They were like, Jordan Mailata didn't know what a quarterback was. He had no idea. Never seen a football field.
Yeah.
When you put a guy like that with that size and that athleticism out there, if he's going to work hard enough and you teach him the game, then he's going to be fine. You know, and if it works out, it works out. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But at least you're taking a shot at someone instead of just, we'll take a special teams guy. What the hell is the point of that? That just I didn't like it.
It just lacks imagination, and it's kind of boring and lazy, because, Howie Roseman said it in their war room, before they did it, but, he was like, this is a guy who has a lot of natural ability. Everyone in this room, we need to rally around him. And, because, bringing in a guy, IPP program, and a guy that's never played before, it's a culture shock. And then also, from the football perspective, and Philadelphia, obviously with Mailata kind of, they wrote the guidebook to that. So if anyone knows how to do it, it's them. But it takes more time, effort, coaching staff, whole organization, yada yada. And maybe New England is more in a maintenance kind of mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's disappointing is the way I look at it. So
yeah.
All right, last pick rounding out here is Quintavious Hutchins.
Oh yeah.
From Boston College. I think what I wrote in my draft grades was he's a guy that played bigger and faster than he is.
Yes.
Which is great. Except that means that you're not very big or very fast. And that's not great. And in the NFL, playing bigger and faster than you are just doesn't translate. And he's a guy that had 4.5 sacks at BC. I don't know. It worries me. And again, maybe he's a special teams only guy, and he's not ever going to see the field. But I just don't see how this guy gets on the field and is an actual pass rusher for the Patriots ever.
Yeah, well, at least I suppose this is one where I thought, I guess technically I thought they got a value because I had him 236 on my board, Hutchins, and they had him 247. Hutchins is interesting in that obviously he's undersized. If you just see the sort of measurements and then the RAS is 5'2", and then, you mentioned the lack of statistical production, you cut him beneath threshold. But what's interesting for me about Hutchins is, and I think that you said this, he moves around way better on the field than he tested, way better. This is an example of a guy where I couldn't believe that he tested as, around the 50th percentile. So I'll point you to those on-field metrics I was talking about before. Athleticism score, on-field athleticism, he was 99.8th percentile last year in the FBS, 99th percentile max speed, 99th percentile acceleration. Change of direction 99.2. That was 99.6 percentile. He moves around really good on the field, and then he has really long arms. So it's sort of it's his frame is small, but he has the long arms with it. So it's interesting because he zips around on the field. It hasn't come together yet, but it is, of all we've been talking about a lot of uninteresting profiles and evaluations. This one caught my eye where I was like, I wonder if someone could turn that guy into something. He's got long arms. He moves around on the field really well. They haven't figured out how to use him yet, and the light hasn't come on for him. But It's interesting. A guy went like 2 rounds above this. That's kind of like this. Joseph's, is kind of like that from Tennessee, where it's like he's like 238 pounds, but it's like crazy long arms, and he's a good athlete. Like those guys are interesting in the NFL to use moving around.
Yeah.
Well, the what do you call it? The Pats, not in the draft, but undrafted, had Elijah Ponder last year, who ended up, by the time we got to the playoffs with Harold Landry banged up, ended up being like their second best edge defender. He outperformed Braden Swinson, and he's kind of in that mold.
Yeah, 100%. Made his brother Christian proud.
Yeah.
Sorry. Minnesota Vikings.
Well, I was going to say we got a Vikings show.
Vikings
You had
legend.
to slide some Vikings stuff in there at some point, right? So, so that's the Patriots draft. You gave it a D. Overall, right? I think your biggest qualm is day 3, right? Because you seem to like the value for the first 3 guys. And again, I know you were a little bit lower on Raritan overall, but you seem to like the value on all 3 guys, all 3 first guys.
Yeah, and Raritan, I have to put a big asterisk on that one because, that's almost as much on me because I didn't project the tight end run that we were going to see, because I do wish that I had ranked out more tight ends and, gotten them a little bit further just as a position group, thinking about across the 257, because more went than, and it was more aggressive, but the upside is there with him. So I can't argue with that one. I thought the first 2 were rock solid picks. Raritan, I understand what they're doing there in the environment they're in. I'm not going to argue with that one. The rest of the picks though, yes. Day 3, I didn't know what they were doing, and yeah, there was a lot of weirdness going on there. So I just thought it was an uninspiring day 3. And when you have, what was it, 2, 4, you have 6 picks there. Yeah. And I kind of think you're out to lunch on those. Like that's kind of why I settled where I did.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a fair criticism. I think it's a very fair criticism. So,
yeah.
Who had your favorite draft? I know you have a few, you have one, is it 1 A+ that you have? And then you kind of go from there? 2 A+, and then you do 2 Fs as well. Is that how you do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who were the 2 A+?
They were both on both sides. It was in the NFC. I remember that one of the A+ was the Bucks, and I think the other one was the Giants.
Okay.
And then my Fs were, not the 49ers. You're probably thinking I gave them a D-. Actually, it's funny, that whole division, I hated all of their. So I gave the Seahawks a D, I gave the 49ers a D-, I gave the Rams an F, and I gave the Cardinals an F. So they were like, that one division was taking all my low grades. Like, they were taking the bullets for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, the Bucks, I mean, you look at Ruben Bain at 15.
What a pick.
How does he drop to 15?
Yeah. Yeah, it's some of these organizations, they just have the thresholds, and like it or not, and the Vikings, they're one of them. Flores loves, like, the Vikings wouldn't have taken Ruben Bain. He's not a threshold player for them. So it's there's less teams that are able to draft Ruben Bain. I think that's one thing, and then obviously the teams that are, then you lose some tiebreakers because of that thing as well. But either way, I think there's going to be about 13 teams that are kicking themselves, and I don't think it's going to take long for them to get there either. Ruben Bain liked every offensive tackle he played dang near in college, and a lot of future NFL ones. We saw him overcome the lack of length over and over again. He's going to do it the same way in the NFL, which is the power. He just punches. It's Mike Tyson. He punches through. He doesn't need to have a longer reach than you when he has that thunderous power, and then you can't just sit on that because he has the agility. He can bend the edge as well. The effort is there too. I mean, he is a real tone setter on the field as well. So the Bucks, they had a front 7 and an edge position that's been crying out for help both for years. And I think Ruben Bain, and in state and everything, I think that was manna from heaven.
Yeah, that's incredible to me that he fell that far. I mean, he would have been, if I was the Jets, I might have taken him at 2. Like I liked him that much, and it's no hate to Reese or to Bailey because I think they're great prospects as well. I was a Bain guy through and through. I think, I'm always skeptical of the guys with the athletic limitations. Listeners of this podcast will know my skepticism about Will Campbell last cycle. I thought, like, you saw the arm length show up for Will Campbell. There were clear issues where it was an issue for him in college. I didn't really see that with Bain in his arm length.
Yeah.
I think if the NFL Combine didn't exist and you just watched the games and then showed up to the draft, you would have no clue Bain had short arms. Just watching, like he overcame it so naturally and so effortlessly that
you don't notice it.
Yeah, and if that's how it shows up on tape at that level of competition, I'm just not really all that worried about it.
Yeah, he has the super. I mean, the real superpower is the power, but also the agility and the athleticism that he has too, the ability to bend. But like with those two things in conjunction, you can overcome a lack of length if you're utterly elite at two things. Right? It's like it's the guys where you have to threshold them. It's guys that are like, they got like hustle sack numbers in college, right? Like who is it? Caden Curry from, and I don't mean to like shit on him, but Caden Curry was pretty good at Ohio State, but it's like a T-Rex arm guy where it's a lot of hustle stats around like awesome players. Like we have sort of our prototypical ones there, but yeah, Bain, he's dominating on his own. Hakeem Messidor owes Ruben Bain millions of dollars.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, Hakeem Messidor never would have sniffed the first round if he hadn't played across from Ruben Bain. But yeah, Ruben Bain is one hell of a player.
Yeah. Then the other A plus you have is the Giants. The guy I want to know your opinion on is Malachi Fields, because I was high on Malachi Fields. I don't know if a lot of people were. I liked him a lot. I'm curious your opinion on Fields.
Yeah, I think Fields could be a solid wide receiver too in the NFL. I guess with me it was just didn't see. Like, that's what I think his ceiling is, because of the capped athleticism and stuff. I like his ball skills. He uses his body really well. But it's like if he doesn't become, kind of a possession wide receiver too, then it's a guy, how much value are you getting from him? So there's sort of that, that burden of proof to get to for him to sort of justify the slot. That's kind of where it's like back and forth. This receiver class in right there in the middle, there's a lot of interesting names, to kind of parse through. And so Fields, an older guy, again, all spring it was like, guys, Jacoby Lane and, a Surratt, right? Like you'd have some of these boundary guys, you're looking at their profiles. But yeah, that was it for me for Fields. Just I think he's capped with where he is right now. And then I just wondered, is that as a wide receiver too in the NFL? And if not, that's where the risk is.
Yeah, I can see that. And then your two Fs were the as you mentioned, right? The Rams and the Cardinals.
Oh yeah.
The Ty Simpson pick. What the hell are they doing? You're trying to win a freaking Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to, and here's the thing about the Patriots, right? The Patriots move up and they draft Lamu at 28, right?
Yeah.
I like the pick in part because the Patriots were in the Super Bowl last year. But that doesn't mean that they're playing for the Super Bowl this year. They're not Super Bowl or bust this year. They are, hey, we got to continue to build our roster because we still need a lot of things. We are in desperate need of long-term help at offensive line. We understand that's the most important thing for Drake May, and not to mention that there might be an A.J. Brown trade coming. But we think that's the most important thing long-term for A.J. Brown, for Drake May, and so we're going to invest in the offensive line. If the Rams had done that and said, we're not going to start this guy until next year, well, I wouldn't have liked that from the offensive line. You draft a quarterback who's 100% not going to start for you this year and might not start for you next year. I don't understand the rationale if you're a Super Bowl or bust team like the Rams are.
I didn't get it either, and I'll say, like, I really respect the way that the Rams have drafted recently here. Like, I would put them respect level either one or two. As far as I go with how they draft. I love how they had begun to revolutionize using some of the on-field kind of metrics that I was citing before. I don't have nearly as many as they do, but like that data, they were early on that, and that in conjunction with their eye, they don't care as much about some of the pre-draft testing, and that allowed them to, find some guys like Kyron Williams and Puka, later on. And one of the ways that you moneyball the draft is you let the shitty teams above you reach for overrated prospects at perceived roster need spots. The Rams just assumed the role of the shitty drafting team this year. They just did it with what they perceived to be a 2027 roster need and a contingency plan at quarterback. But why you would do that the end of the Stafford window, like you mentioned, with a huge asset like that, the 13th pick in a draft that was like, 13, 14, 15 guys deep, you could get in there on that. And 1 year, this is another thing people don't talk about. We're 1 year away from the most stacked draft quarterback class. One of them that we've seen in 20 years.
Yeah.
So you also have blocked your ability to take a first round quarterback next year. And for what?
Right.
To not add immediate help to this team and Ty Simpson, a guy that was a 1 year starter and wasn't good for the latter half of it. It's really weird.
I will say, you talk about blocking the path. If this team is Super Bowl or bust, they're probably not in a position where they can draft one of those quarterbacks next year. So, like, on paper, the idea of you got an extra first round pick, it's in the top half of the first round. There's a quarterback there you get to go 1 year ahead of what your plan is to draft and develop the quarterback. I think all of that is smart and savvy and great thinking. And I just don't like the prospect. Not with this guy. Like, I like the plan, not with this guy. That said, I think if there was one team that could make this guy work, it's probably the Rams. So I think there's a chance that the process here is awful and then the result ends up being good because he gets to sit for a year or two and learn from Stafford and McVay, get reps in practice and do all the things you have to do. And still then, I don't know if he's ever going to be the best quarterback even in that division, but I think he'll probably be. I think you can get him to a point where he's good enough to consistently win you games in that system.
All that's well said. I agree with all that. I do think it's bad process. To me, it seems like what happened here is that Les Snead manufactured the 13th overall pick because terrible Terry Fontenot a year ago panicked and tried to save his job by trading back up into the first round, gave the Rams their Atlanta's first round pick this year. That's how you get the 13th one. And I think from the second they made that trade, I think Les Snead was like, that is for the quarterback of the future. And I just think they got crazy myopic with it. And I think they knew it's going to be Mendoza's the one quarterback. Well, who's the second one? Simpson. Could we get Simpson? Well, let's, and these stories are coming out about, they were being very clandestine and Ty Simpson's telling ESPN radio, like, I Skyped with Sean, but they didn't want me to say anything. It's like, Rams, who fucking cares? What if you
Right.
If you get sniped on Ty Simpson, then you can select a good player and save your first round pick for next year on a good quarterback, like in the stack quarterback class? Like, what are we doing here? You guys think that you're in a film noir or something, sneaking around to ambush the NFL with your Ty Simpson selection? I thought the whole thing was weird. And if Ty Simpson doesn't get picked there, he almost assuredly is selected somewhere in the mid to late 20s by one of these dopey franchises that burned their third round pick. You would have seen a trade up from the Cardinals or, one of these, or the Jets or whatever. And what it really appears is that, you manufacture that pick, you're Les Snead. And then this was the other wild part about that story. They asked Ty Simpson about declaring and all that sort of stuff. And Ty Simpson said, oh, yeah, I was being advised during the pre-draft process about that decision by Les Snead. Then it turns out Les Snead is friends with the father of Ty Simpson's father, who's a head coach at the SCS, Jason Simpson, I think. And so it's like, wait a second, did Les Snead, because he felt like he was the one who that pick wouldn't be there for? It's his pick. It's like, for a while now, it's been like, hey buddy, I'm gonna draft your son in the. It's really weird. It seemed like that was more of a Les Snead kind of production. Now they're sort of putting out, no, actually Sean liked him. The whole thing to me is really weird. And either way, I think it's a mistake, right? With the ability to compete for a Super Bowl this year, I don't understand why they felt like they had to force the issue on that prospect. But knock yourself out.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Yeah.
Well, then you think about other ways you could use the pick. You look at trades that happened this offseason, and they've been sniffing around the A.J. Brown market. Like, I look at someone like Jalen Waddle. Like, you could have gone out and gotten someone like that in theory if you're sniffing around the wide receiver market and you're willing to move a first. They already moved the one first for a corner. And if you're trying to get younger at receiver with some of the guys you have, why not go out and get someone like that? And we know that they've drafted all these speed guys. Like, they want that element in their offense. Maybe someone like that works. I do think their biggest fear, because they got myopic on this and probably fell in love with him, is that the Cardinals go and they can move like that and he ends up being good. And you almost end up playing defense with the pick where you're so scared of maybe him landing in your division and being good that you want to make sure you get him. But like, I look at what he is as a prospect and also what the Cardinals have done historically, and I'm like, I just wouldn't be that scared of him ending up in your division.
No.
Yeah, and we don't have to worry about that with Carson back, do we?
Well, honestly, one of the interesting things for me is like, I also think, you're 61, you take Max Clare at 61. How many flipping tight ends do they need? Fine, take another tight end, but like, yeah, you feel like maybe you could use, a more of a pass catcher, whether it's an Eli Stowers. Now Stowers goes 54 to the Eagles, but like, could you trade up, from 61 to kind of move up around the board? Could you take a guy like Oscar Delp, who goes to the next round of the Saints, or, Malachi Fields goes 74. And again, we kind of talked about him, but like, maybe you like, Zachariah Branch, who's one of those kind of fast guys, or Antonio Williams, who goes in the third round. So those are I just, like, even feel like that second pick, I'm like, I don't know how I feel about even that second one. So anyways, it just seemed like a really bizarre draft from them. And I think very worthy of an F. The last one I want to talk about, I don't want to get too deep in the Arizona Cardinals because we don't care about the Arizona Cardinals, although does have a Patriots connection because Monty Ossenfort, who used to be the de facto GM of the Patriots, or close to it, takes Jeremiah Love number 3 overall. And like, it's so incredibly stupid. It's just so dumb. And we've talked about this before, but like, Saquon Barkley is an incredible player. He's a phenomenal running back. And he played for the Giants, and the Giants took him number 2 overall, and he was probably the second best player in that draft. But he was useless for the Giants because they were terrible. The Cardinals are terrible. Now, Matt made the point, and it's a good argument, Matt, that, maybe he makes life easier on whatever first-round quarterback they take next year, and maybe he's a really good player who doesn't actually make you better, which means that you actually, have a shot at one of those guys next year. But I just feel like you're lighting that pick on fire because you're not going to be good for the first 4 years of his career, and then you're wasted it.
Well, it would be awful rationale to use that pick on someone who you think will have so little impact that you're going to stink and be able to get the quarterback next year. Like, maybe that's what they're thinking. Maybe they're playing 4D chess here, but I think that's 1D chess. This is just dumb reasoning if that's actually how they get there.
I think that because I think the Austin Fort guy, he's one of the biggest idiots we got in the NFL. That guy, I'll make a prediction for you here, and I don't think I'm going out on a limb. He has already made his last NFL draft selection as a general manager in the NFL. I think his fate was sealed here, and boy, is he a bad drafter. I think what this was, I think he's trying to save his job because it's like this roster stinks. And it's like, man, you're looking over this draft class, man, one-off scenario, and you have your shitty quarterback. We don't have any talent at wide receiver. Like, you're just looking over the roster. You're like, what one guy could maybe give us a spark? Like, I think that's what led to the thinking behind Love. I think it's a front office that's trying to save its job. But yeah, this what a tire fire! That one of the worst drafting teams over these last couple of years. If I'm in that seat, we're trading down. If Jeremiah Love is such a hot commodity or whatever, come on down. Who wants him? We're
right.
This team has so many holes, and that goes back to the how poor drafting Mr. Austin Ford is. So maybe he shouldn't have been the one making that call anyway.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
Well, and then I think you also look at. Part of the value of drafting a guy, especially when you're at that point, is you think you can get a difference maker, not just for the 5 years on the rookie contract, but for the length of a second contract. That's the hope there. And when it's the running back, you don't know if you're even going to want to sign him to a second contract. Meanwhile, you got how many pass rushers sitting there that you could take, and guys who are young enough that you feel like you can get a full 8-9 years of quality play with them if they develop the way you want to. Like, I don't know, man.
Crazy. So, anyways, I think that does it for us, Thor. This has been. I always love having these conversations with you, man, because it really is fun. And I will say, I love you're an interesting guy to talk about the consensus board with, because when you do your drafting, when you do your grading, I'm sorry, you don't look at the consensus board. You look simply at your own board. And I think that, it's a fascinating way of doing it. And then, of course, you make your curve. You pick 2 A pluses and 2 Fs, and then you kind of go from there. So I think I really like that. I really appreciate that. I respect the work that you do. And as I said, I think you're one of the best college football minds that we have out here. So I appreciate you coming on with us.
Thanks so much, Pat. Yeah, it's always a pleasure for me too. So thanks for having me on again.
Absolutely. So before we leave, though, you got to plug yourself here. Let everyone know where they can read you, see you, hear you, everything else.
You can find me on Twitter, ThorKU. My Viking show is Thor Talks Purple, is on YouTube, Score North channel. We also had a whole bunch of NFL draft stuff. We were live for 10 hours over the draft and had the audience blew me away. It was mostly the draft from the perspective of the Vikings, but I broke down, every guy, of course, as we went through your live day 1 and day 2, but that's on Purple Daily channel on YouTube. And then lastly, my grades, AFC, NFC, and then my Thor 500, best available UDFA, everything like that. I have that up on Substack right now, thorku.substack.com.
Love it. There you go, man. I'm a subscriber to the Substack as well, so
my man.
I'm a big fan of it. Matt says always love the Thor chats, which is great. So, hey, man, thanks for coming on again. We appreciate it, and we've got you penciled in for next year already. So
done and done. I'll see you here
from there. Sounds good, man.
Same time, same place.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Sir.
Appreciate it.
Take care. Thanks for the chat. We appreciate you, and be good to each other. And go Pats.